Alright, Krogan rebellions. After the Rachni War, the quick-breeding Krogan expanded at the expense of their neighbors. Warlords leveraged their veteran soldiers to seize living space while the council races were still grateful. Over centuries, the Krogan conquered world after world. There was always just one more needed. When the council finally demanded withdrawal from the Asari colony of Lucia, Krogan overlord Codex stormed off the citadel, daring the council to take their worlds back. Oh boy. Well, but the council had taken precautions. The finest STG operators and Asari huntresses had been drafted into a covert observation force. The Office of Special Tactics and Reconnaissance. That's how the Spectres were formed, because of the Krogan rebellions. I don't think I heard this detail before. That's fucking interesting and cool, and I love that. The Spectres opened the war with crippling strategic strikes. Krogan planets went dark as computer viruses flooded the extranet. Sabotaged antimatter refineries disappeared in blue-white annihilation. Headquarters stations shattered into orbit-clogging debris, rammed by pre-placed suicide freighters. Still, this only delayed the inevitable. The war would have been lost if not for the first contact with the Turians, who responded to Krogan threats with a prompt declaration of war. Interesting. Similarly to humans. But with the Turians, interesting. The Council would have lost, but the Turians came out of nowhere and wiped the Krogan out, and then the Asari Slayers were like, hey, so, would you like to, be our military and stuff? And there you go. So, and that happened. Who responded to Krogan threats of the planned declaration of war. Being on the far side of Krogan space from the Council, the Turians advanced rapidly into the lightly defended Krogan rear areas. The Krogan responded by dropping space stations and asteroids on Turian colonies. 3 worlds were rendered completely uninhabitable. This was precisely the wrong approach to take with the Turians. Each is first and foremost a public servant, willing to risk his life to protect his comrades. Very interesting, because a lot of times, well, Garrus is kind of one exception to this, except he is still very protect and serve-y. I mean, or else he wouldn't have stuck with Citadel security as long as he did, but he's definitely kind of an exception. He kind of feels to me like a generational exception, kind of like a lot of my generation, millennials, and also the generation right after us, the Gen Z, are kind of right now. Where a lot of us are going, the opposite direction from a lot of the bullcrap that we see in the world, that we feel that we see, and I'm certainly one of those. Regardless. And Garrus seems like one of those exceptions, but otherwise I'm pretty sure this is pretty darn accurate. Rather than increasing public war weariness, Krogan tactics stiffened Turian resolve, which is very interesting, because with the Asari and Salarians, I'm pretty sure it did do the war weariness thing. The arrival of Turian task forces saved many worlds from the warlords' marauding fleets, but it took development of the genophage bioweapon to end the war. There were decades of unrest afterwards. Rogue warlords and holdout groups of insurgents refused to surrender or disappeared into the frontier systems to become pirates. So yeah, Krogan rebellions, very, very interesting. Quarian's economy. I don't know if I've read a lot of these entries before, so it'll be nice to kind of get this knowledge in my Durgan system here. My Durgan brainal. The migrant fleet has little economic base, operating in a state of perpetual hand-to-mouth. While Quarian ships include light manufacturing and assembly plants, they lack heavy industries such as refining and shipbuilding. The fleet has tankers for water purification and oxygen cracking, Not sure what oxygen cracking is supposed to mean, or if it's just a thing invented here. And I'm wondering if if it is something invented here, if it's in another document. If not, I might end up looking up oxygen cracking soon, because I have no idea what that entails. But the space-intensive nature of agriculture limits food production. Okay, meaning, I'm guessing, in order for, like, storing oxygen and using it to grow food? I don't know. A single disaster could destroy the fragile balance. Ooful. Yeah, it's amazing how the Koreans make do in their situation. But they had to, you know? The Koreans earn income in creative ways. Because the government is obliged to provide food, water, air, and medical support for every individual, the conclave strategically determines the course of the fleet to bring in resources and income. Interesting. So that's why they that's how they determine the course of the fleet. Normally, anyway. A species who suspects the migrant fleet is heading towards their space often offers a gift of surplus starships, fuel, and resources to convince the conclave to alter course. Jesus. That's kind of mean, but it's also, hey, like, that's what they're going there for, you know? But yeah, the Koreans are just kind of shunned by everyone, which is kind of sad. I mean, like, general, like, on a large level, on a big, what am I trying to say? On a large scale level, the races are not, like, governments and that kind of thing will look at the Koreans coming in their space and be like, yep, nope. But there's definitely individuals that, agree with the Koreans, but it's just like, it's just kind of sad how the Koreans aren't gonna fucking hurt anyone. Stop being as, like, and they aren't all beggars and thieves. I wonder where that actually came from, the beggars and thieves thing. I really do wonder why exactly people think the Koreans are all beggars and thieves. Alright. As the fleet passes through a system, swarms of mining vessels work over asteroids for metals and silicious? Probably containing silicon? Something? Not really sure what silicious means, or if that's even the right pronunciation of that word. Materials and cometary bodies. I'm guessing comets? See, I'm guessing a lot of these are scientific words that I'm not actually too well versed in, because I'm not a super science, based person. I'm not really too keen on scientific stuff. I'm a creative individual. What I like to learn about is art and the people that create it, and that kind of a thing, and a lot about, and especially creations themselves, especially games and stories. Well, really mostly games, and then also music as well. I like to learn about that kind of stuff a lot. I don't like to learn about the world at large. I like to learn about creative endeavors and how people, do those things, and etc. Because it's really fascinating for me how people make stuff, and things people are passionate about. That's mostly what I like to learn about, because I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to create for a living, because at this point, if I would be able to make income right here on this computer, it'd be a lot easier for me than any kind of job would offer right now, where I'm working for someone else. I don't really want to be an entrepreneur in the sense that most people would think about that either, so being essentially a content creator is what I am trying to do. Now, of course, I'm not going to sit on here and ask for money. What I'm going to do is I'll probably make a Patreon if and when I have, you know, a follow base that starts asking if they can donate to me. Until then, I'm going to keep working for direct avenues to making money that are not, doing, like, asking on YouTube and that kind of thing. Because that's just wrong in my opinion. If people ask you if they want to donate to you, you're doing enough right that I think you're warranted. Until then, until that happens to me, I'm just gonna keep making my little noise out here and see what happens. Corian, okay, so for metals and silicious materials and cometary bodies for water, ice, and organics. Corian miners are adept at locating and strip mining spaceborne resources. This sparks conflict with corporations already working the system. It's probably part of why, if not one of the biggest reasons why, because money moves the galaxy in this point, in this case, races try to push them away by offering materials and that kind of a thing. And resources. Large mining concerns spend millions on lobbyists and public relations portraying the Corians as locusts, devouring the resources of the system before moving on. Also, fuck those corporations. It's interesting. A corporation gets big enough and it's like they become a emotionless entity that's concerned only with money, even though the people within may not necessarily feel that way. It's kind of sad, and that's really... In Mass Effect, that's a really important point. There's a few corporations that can go to hell in this place, for sure, in this universe. The greatest asset of the Corians is their rarefied skills. Most are experienced miners. Due to their life of perpetual salvage and repair, they are skilled engineers and technicians. More than once, the very corporations that lobby against the Corians have made backroom deals with the fleet. Of course. Because they're always going to do whatever's in their best interest for making money. And that's not a good attitude to have, people. Come on. Arranging for skilled Corians to fill space engineering jobs that other species would demand higher wages for. Makes sense. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Corians are widely hated among the working classes. The Corians are coming to take our jobs as a common response to the fleet's approach. Okay, I'm starting to see a lot of the hate against them. Poor fucking Corians, man. They're really, really, really oppressed. And fuck all the different types of people that are oppressing them. Corporations, governments, common people. A lot of people think they're freaking thieves. Fuck them. Fuck all of those people. You know what's interesting? A lot of this parallels to real life racism, especially among white people, against, minorities. Now, I am a white person, and I've never been like that, and it makes me sick to see it. And hell, I mean, look at the dates this is recorded. Y'all probably are aware that there's been a lot of not so wonderful events around and because of racism recently here in America. And yeah, I feel like stories like this are important because for a lot of reasons, but they get you thinking about this kind of stuff, They get you realizing, hey, this is a parallel to real life. And man, that sucks. Because it makes you see a perspective that you may not really see in real life. And it's very important to get those kinds of perspectives from people. And the Corians, I think, are a very important perspective for a lot of people to think about and to reflect on and to feel sorry for their plight and to kind of parallel back to real life and say, what could I possibly do for people that are oppressed like the Corians? Because that's no way to live, man. That sucks. And Korean government. I can read about Koreans all day. They fascinate the hell out of me, man. I love them. Due to the Koreans' precarious existence and the need to enforce strict rationing, government is somewhat autocratic. The migrant fleet's operations are directed by the Admiralty, a board of 5 military officers who are advised by a legislative body called the Conclave. Each vessel in the fleet has the right to send representatives to the conclave aboard the flagship. The number of representatives is based on crew size. Larger clans with bigger ships and more votes formed the cores of political blocs. Blocs? I'm not sure if that's a word that exists, but I guess it probably does. Opposition comes from the Outriders coalition, which with delegates from thousands of smaller ships. Interesting. The Admiralty defers to the Conclave's decisions in most circumstances. However, if all 5 members agree that a Conclave decision jeopardizes the survival of the fleet and cannot get the Conclave to address their concerns, they have the right to summarily overturn the legislative decision. After the Admiralty uses this extraordinary power, they must resign. If the Admiralty does not step down after using their veto, the rest of the military is obliged to arrest them. Each ship captain has the authority over his vessel. Each ship captain has authority over his vessel or her. You know, captains can be female. Shepherd later. Actually, wait, shepherd now. Actually, but is advised by an elected. Heck, they can even be theys, because non-binary people exist. Wow, amazing. But is advised by an elected civilian council, just as the Admiralty is advised by the Conclave. This relationship may range from cooperation to polite tolerance to outright hostility, but any captain who overrules his council without good reason is relieved of command by the Admiralty. Many Korean ships are owned by clans who pool their resources to purchase used vessels from private sellers. Large ships are prestigious for big, rich clans, but a small ship means status for a small clan with enough personal wealth to afford a private vessel. Interesting. Clan vessel captains are not subject to dismissal by the Admiralty. Abusive captains are a family problem if they do not disrupt the operations of the fleet. Interesting. I've never read a lot of this, but the sheer, depth of the political machinations of the Koreans and how different they are from what I know of politics, which isn't much because, like I said, I said this a little bit earlier, I do not focus my attention on things happening in the world. I focus my attention on the art being created, essentially, and the thing, and by art I mean any kind of media that I am drawn to. I'm drawn to pretty specific forms of media, but within those I'm usually researching, learning more, watching stuff, etc. And looking at people who are passionate about them and creating great things. YouTube is definitely one of those media. And I don't watch it. YouTube has been my replacement for television for years. The platform is a lot more powerful for the right kind of messages to get out. So, yes, there's some issues with it as well, but nothing can be perfect because human beings aren't. But regardless, moving on. Migrant fleet. The migrant fleet is the largest concentration of starfaring vessels in the galaxy, sprawling across millions of kilometers. It can take days for the entire fleet to pass through a mass relay. By the way, European people, do you say kilometers or kilometers? I'm pretty sure kilometers is the right pronunciation, right? But I don't know. So if any of y'all can let me know, let me know. When the Koreans fled their homeworld, the fleet was a motley aggregation of freighters, shuttles, industrial vessels, and the odd warship. After 3 centuries, all have been modified to support larger crews as comfortably as possible. As the Quarians achieved stability, they began weeding out the ships least suitable for long-term habitation, selling them and pooling the money to buy larger and more space-worthy hulls. This process is ongoing as vessels wear out and break down. While some ships enjoy dedicated cabins with full privacy and sanitary facilities, many more are former freighters, whose cargo bays and containers are pressurized and divided into family spaces using simple metal cubicle bulkheads. The Quarians enlivened these austere spaces with colorful quilts and tapestries, which also help muffle sound, like sex. Sorry, my brain is my brain. The day-to-day, except Quarians probably don't have a lot of sex, considering you can only have one child and B, like, Quarian sex is probably not the easiest thing because of the suits, but regardless, okay. The day-to-day operations of the fleet, traffic control, station keeping, supply distribution, and so on, are under military jurisdiction. Though ship captains have the authority to deviate from their assigned positions and may leave the fleet at any time, they are assumed to do so at their own risk. As the migrant fleet moves around the galaxy, many ships split off to pursue individual goals, returning days or years later. Interesting. I didn't know a lot of them divert from themselves from the flotilla often. So yeah, I really got a lot of ideas about the Quarians. Now, one of the people I watch, Lore Runner, who's done a really comprehensive lore run on this game, where he really, beforehand he researched and he made sure to cover all the lore while he was just playing through that he's at all aware of, and I think he did mention a few things about this being rather, what's the word? About the fact that 2 and 3, I think, but definitely 3, but I feel like 2 as well, retcons a few things about the lore about 1, for sure. But I'm wondering to see if I'll notice any changes when I start up 2 and 3 and go through those codexes, because I've read those even less than I've read the first game's codex. Alright. And I'm really excited to keep going here. Alright, so Citadel Galactic Government. Yep, there we go. So, I don't think I've read the Citadel Convention, so let's do that real quick. These diplomatic talks occurred in the wake of the Krogan rebellions, as a response to the destruction of the conflict in an attempt to distance the Council from the brutal Krogan warfare. The conventions regulate the use of weapons of mass destruction. A WMD causes environmental alteration to the world. A bomb that produces a large crater is not considered a WMD. A bomb that causes a nuclear winter is. Use of WMD is forbidden on garden worlds like Earth, with ecospheres that can readily support a population. If a habitable world is destroyed, it will not be replaced for millions of years. The conventions do not forbid the use of WMD on hostile worlds or in sealed space station environments. Many militaries continue to develop and maintain stockpiles, which is spoopy, and everyone should stop that, especially in real life. Because we could all fucking die if a bunch of governments decided to get trigger happy with their freaking nukes. Anyway, the conventions graded weapons of mass destruction into tiers of concern. Tier 1 is the greatest threat to galactic peace. Tier 1. Large kinetic impactors, such as asteroid drops or deorbiting space stations. Effectively free and available in any system, in the form of debris left over from planetary accretion. Not sure what that means. What planetary accretion means. I might have to look that word up, too. Kinetic impactors are the weapon of choice for terrorists in third galaxy nations. Third world, third galaxy. Small potatoes. nations compared to the rest, which I don't think they should be trying to war with, like, the council or anything. But hey, if they're doing it, then rip them. Tier 2, uncontrolled self-replicating weapons, such as nanotechnology, viral or bacteriological organisms, von Neumann devices, and destructive computer viruses. Not sure what a von Neumann device is, but it's probably a real-world thing that I'll have to look up later. These weapons can lie dormant for millennia, waiting for a careless visitor to carry them on to another world. Tier 3, large energy burst weapons, such as nuclear or antimatter warheads. Tier 4, alien species deliberately introduced to crowd out native forms necessary for the health of an ecosystem. Which, fuck you if you're doing that for any kind of reason. You're destroying a whole ecosystem for what? Probably some sort of war reason, or it's you're probably trying, to weaken and sabotage another sentient species, which you can go to hell for that to begin with. But you're also fucking with the entire world and that they live on, and fuck you for that. Like, Jesus Christ. Common sense and rationality and not deciding to do this kind of shit or anything even close to it is really important in the world, and I'm gonna spread that message as much as I can and live it for sure. Alright, so Citadel Security is a volunteer police service answering to the Citadel Council. The 200,000 constables of CSEC are responsible for maintaining public order in the densely populated Citadel. They also provide pirate suppression, customs enforcement, and search and rescue throughout the Citadel cluster. CSEC has 6 divisions. Enforcement. Uniformed officers who patrol the Citadel and respond to emergencies. Investigation. Detectives who puzzle out the truth behind crimes that bring perpetrators to justice. Customs. Screens the thousands of passengers and cargo containers that pass through the Citadel's ports every day. Network. Deals with cybercrimes like identity and copyright theft, hacking and viral attacks, and illegal artificial intelligence. Special response. Deals with hostage situations, bombs, and heavily armed criminals. In the unlikely event that attackers board the Citadel, they are also the front line of defense, armed with military-grade equipment. Patrol. Naval arm, with ships stationed throughout the Citadel cluster. Unlike the other divisions, they are rarely seen at the Citadel, nor do they stay in one place long. Joining CSEC is prestigious. Applications must be sponsored by a Citadel counselor or the ambassador of an associate council race. Generally, applicants have many years of distinguished service in the military or police forces of their nation, but an inexperienced applicant with demonstrable talent will be fairly considered. CSEC and the Spectres are often at odds. Many CSEC members, notably current executor Vinari Palin, believe that allowing Spectres to be above the law is a dangerous practice. We heard that opinion of his in person, actually, which is really cool that this is mentioned here. The actions of Sarah and Arturius lend credence to this position. The Spectres, in turn, are aggravated when CSEC's dedication to procedure and due process hampers their investigations. So if I'm not saying much about it, it's because I don't have too much to say, but I'm basically just going to comment the comments that I think of at a given point in time that I feel like are good things to add, and then continue onward. The ring is an enclosed loop of park-like space serving as a connection point for the wards. Oh yeah, by the way, this is Citadel Station Presidium Ring. I want to read it just in case people are just listening to this. The interior walls are lined with the embassies of influential species and private residences for the galaxy's elite. The Presidium is full of open-air restaurants, bars, and luxurious meeting areas. Gravity is about 1/3 Earth normal. A holographic sky is projected over the ceiling of the ring. Unlike the 24/7 bustle of the wards, the Presidium maintains a 20-hour day schedule with a 6-hour night. That's very interesting how it's only 6 hours. Where lights are dimmed and the sky goes through a night cycle. It's really interesting how it's only 6 hours. Very interesting. Offices and, I wonder why they would do that. like they have the. It seems like they have the power to make the night cycle as long or as short as they want. Why did they pick 6 hours? It's very interesting. Offices and residences are often open to the interior. It is not unusual for embassies to have no exterior wall at all. This does not cause a crime problem due to the heavy CSEC presence and ubiquitous monitoring devices on the Presidium. Thieves are quickly identified and apprehended. The ring is the location of the Citadel's spaceports. Being closer to the center of spin, there is less motion for a ship to match, and the reduced spin gravity makes handling cargo easier. Hundreds of ships pass through the Citadel every day, and every species with an embassy is granted a private dock. The tower, at the center of the ring, holds the administration of the Citadel Council. The tower rises over a kilometer from the ring, appearing to thrust forward parallel to the ward arms. As the tower is at the center of the spin axis, it experiences little centrifugal force. Gravity is maintained using mass effect fields at a 90-degree angle to the ring and wards. The consular dock can be found at the base of the tower. While normally used for diplomatic couriers and spectre business, the shuttles docked here can evacuate the council government in an emergency. The Citadel is surrounded by a blue-tinted reflection nebula. The light of the nebula is actually light from the Citadel, scattered and reflected back at the station. At first, the Serpent Nebula was assumed to be made of microscopic construction debris. Prevailing theory holds that the Protheans used molecular nanotechnology to manufacture the incredibly durable materials used in the Citadel. But unlike other nebulae, the Serpent does not dissipate over time. Therefore, it must be replenished constantly. The current popular theory is that the non-recyclable waste collected by the Citadel's keepers is somehow rendered down to the atomic or molecular level and injected into the cloud. Very interesting. Again, all Reaper tech to just keep things moving and being the way that they want them to. Pretty spoopy. The thick nebula presents a navigation hazard. Beyond the relatively clear areas around the Citadel, electrical discharges are common. These are not blocked by kinetic barriers and can severely damage metal-framed starships. In addition, some dense knots of dust could overwhelm the repulsion of kinetic barriers on smaller ships. If such a vessel is moving fast enough at the time, the effects are similar to being hit by a sandblaster. Oofle. Attempting to reach the Citadel through open space navigation is unadvisable. The only safe approach is through the various mass relays that orbit it. Again, Reaper tech. Again, probably extremely deliberate and cold and calculated and spooky. Fuck the Reapers. Alright, so, it looks like we've already read the statistics, so I'll just kind of skip over that. Wards. The majority of the Citadel's population lives in the wards, the 5 massive arms of the station that house the residential and commercial districts. Many galactic races have established cultural enclaves here. Population density and cost of living are extremely high, akin to Earth cities such as Hong Kong and Singapore. The wards are open-topped, with skyscrapers rising from the superstructure. Towers are sealed against vacuum, as the breathable atmosphere envelope is only maintained to a height of about 7 meters. The atmosphere is contained by the centrifugal force of rotation and a membrane of dense, colorless sulfur hexafluoride gas, held in place by carefully managed mass effect fields. The view from the wards is spectacular. In the background, stars, Serpent Nebula, and the nearby blue giant called the Widow move across the sky as the station rotates to stabilize itself. In the foreground, the lights of buildings and vehicles on the opposing ward arms perpetually shine. We've seen these views, and they are very stunningly done. Art team deserves a clapple. Hell, the whole damn team deserves a clapple. I love this game. The Citadel has no real day or night. While the station keeps to standard galactic time for political functions, businesses rarely close, and residents acclimate to sleep and work according to personal need rather than a day or night cycle. Additions and modifications are constantly being constructed, though they must stay within certain specifications that will not compromise the operation of the station. Occasionally, The keepers will descend on an area of the wards and move or change the architecture without explanation. Residents have learned to live with these inexplicable intrusions. Treaty of Phyrexian. Due to the destructive potential of dreadnoughts, the council races agreed at the Phyrexian Naval Conference to fix a ratio of dreadnought construction between themselves. At the top of the pyramid is the peacekeeping Turian fleet. Below the Turians are the other council races, currently the Asari and Solarians. Council associate races are at the bottom. The Human Systems Alliance is part of this last group. The ratio of Turian to Council Associate Dreadnoughts is 5 to 3 to 1. For every Dreadnought humans are permitted to build, the Asari have 3, and the Turians 5. Very cool, makes a lot of sense. Humanity and Systems Alliance. Systems Alliance, military jargon. When the ship's crew leaves the vessel, they are ashore. Though normally used regarding planets, it can refer to the boarding of a space station. Away. When a ship releases the equipment tethering it to a space station or surface dock, it is away. Aye aye. The proper way to acknowledge an order. If told to attack, the correct response is aye aye, sir. If asked, are you proud to be a Marine, the correct response is yes, sir. ASAP. Pronounced ASAP. Or ma'am, of course. Anyway, pronounced ASAP, an acronym of as soon as possible. Belay, stop, cease. Bridge. The navigation center of a spacecraft, where the steering is done. Captain's mast. Non-judicial disciplinary proceedings by unit commanders. CIC. Combat Information Center. The command center of a spacecraft. The CIC is filled with sensor displays to make sense out of the chaos of combat. DC. Damage control. The containment and repair of damage to a spacecraft. ECM. Electronic countermeasures used to avoid enemy sensors, from passive emissions masking to active jamming. EVA, extravehicular activity. Time spent in a pressure suit outside of a vehicle, spacecraft, or station. Flank. The flank is the side of a military formation. Since the soldiers are facing elsewhere, an enemy that can attack on the flank can often turn it or roll it up. FNG, freaking new guys. Shepard mentioned at a certain point, I'm not sure if I ended up recording this. I don't think so, honestly. But, there's a point where you can activate, something about a view on the... You can activate one of the windows looking out into the spectacular view from the wards, and your crew has a little conversation there. And the conversation option I picked when it came to Shepard was her basically saying, "We're all FNGs here, keep the chatter all contained and stuff." So that one stuck out to me. But yeah, by freaking in quotes, they probably mean that fucking is the more widely used term, of course. Yeah, widely used meaning for the ground side, the surface of a planet. Helmsman, the crew member who pilots a spacecraft. Radar, light amplified detection and ranging. So it's like radar, except different. An active sensor that bounces lasers off an object to determine its bearing and distance. Radar has sufficient resolution that the data can be reconstructed into an image. Neato. I like the explanations of the science and tech behind that. Cool. Shore party. Spacecraft crew sent ashore on official business. Silent running. An old submariner's term used aboard the Normandy to denote when stealth systems are active. SITREP. Abbreviation of Situation Report. An evaluation of the current military situation. Spacer. Someone who has spent most of their life in space. XO. Executive Officer, the second in command of an Alliance warship. The XO was responsible for administrative and personnel matters. Systems Alliance. Military ranks. The Alliance uses a modified version of the ranking system that has been used for hundreds of years. Soldiers are classified into rank-and-file enlisted personnel, experienced and non-commissioned officers, NCOs, and specially trained officers. The divide between naval personnel and ground forces, Marines, is small. Ground units are a specialized branch of the fleet, just as fighter squadrons are. This unity of command is imposed by the futility of fighting without control of orbit. Without the Navy, any army is pointless, which is interesting. If you think about interplanetary combat, that makes a lot of sense. I never thought about that before, but yeah. The Marines, as a matter of pride, maintain some of their traditional rank titles. For example, Marines have privates and corporals instead of servicemen. In ascending order of responsibility, the ranks of the Alliance are enlisted: servicemen 3rd class, private 2nd class, servicemen 2nd class, private 1st class, servicemen 1st class, corporal. NCOs: service chief, gunnery chief, operations chief. Officers: 2nd lieutenant, 1st lieutenant, staff lieutenant, lieutenant commander, staff commander, captain, major, rear admiral, general, admiral, fleet admiral. Very neato. Systems Alliance, N7. The Alliance Military Vocational Code System classifies the career path of all serving personnel. The MVC consists of one letter and one number. A soldier's MVC indicates proficiency, not rank. The letter notes career path. The number indicates level of experience, as indicated by service record, technical scores, and commendations. All 26 letters are used, and numbers run from 1 to 7. N is the letter code for Special Forces personnel. Very neat. So it's not a ranking system. So these are your skills. This is what you're good at. So that's your code for, probably your superiors to look at in order to figure out where to put you and that kind of thing. That's interesting. And we're N7, so we're like top of the line skilled, and we've got N, Shepherd. It's pretty cool. I like that. It's really interesting. You put it on your armor and everything, so that at a glance they can basically tell what you're going to be good at. Really cool. FTL Drive, appearance. By the way, this is the ships and vehicles. I probably won't have a lot to say about this, and there's a lot of these, so it's going to kind of read through these. And of course, if I think of things I feel like I need to be saying, there's little comments here and there. I'll have them. I'll say them. New space travelers ask, "What does it look like outside a ship moving at faster than light speed?" Part of the answer can be seen in a simple pane of glass. Light travels slower through glass than it does through open air. Light also moves slower in conventional space than it does in a high-speed Mass Effect field. This causes refraction. Any light entering at an angle is bent and separated into a spectrum. Objects outside the ship will appear refracted. Interesting. The greater the difference between the objective exterior and subjective interior speeds of light, the greater the refraction. As the subjective speed of light is raised within the field, objects outside will appear to redshift, eventually becoming invisible only to radio telescope antennae. High-energy electromagnetic sources, normally hidden to the eye, become visible in the high blue spectrum. Interesting. As the speed of light continues to be raised, X-ray, gamma ray, and eventually cosmic ray sources become visible. Stars will be replaced by pulsars, the accretion disks of black holes, quasars, and gamma ray bursts. To an outside observer, a ship within a Mass Effect drive envelope appears blue-shifted. If within a field that allows travel twice at the speed of light, any radiation it emits has twice the energy as normal. If the ship is at a field of about 200 times light speed, it radiates visible light as X-rays and gamma rays, and the infrared heat from the hull is blue-shifted up into the visible spectrum or higher. Ships moving in FTL are visible at great distances, though their signature will only propagate at the speed of light. Starships, crew considerations. Cabins give each individual 10 cubic meters of space. On larger vessels, private rooms are common. As ships get smaller, the number of crew packed into a single wardroom increases. Asari prefer shared spaces even on large vessels, while Krogan territorial instincts make it impossible for them to cohabitate even on the smallest ships. On smaller vessels, hot bunking is the norm. Crew members assigned to different watches share the same bunk. Makes sense. When one gets off duty, he wakes up the person in the bunk. While that crewman is on duty, the first gets his rack time. Spacecraft compartments can be isolated by airtight doors in case of decompression. The cinematic vision of explosive decompression is fiction. Hold compartments either take enough damage that occupants are killed instantly, oof, or leak slowly enough that they are able to reach protective gear. Compartments are equipped with emergency life support apparatus. Fireproof plastic bubbles with air bottles. Small when stowed, ELSA comfortably accommodate one individual inflated. Damage control procedure cuts off ventilation to burning compartments. Without oxygen to consume, fires die in seconds. The compartment is repressurized afterwards for crew recovery. Mass effect fields create an artificial gravity, AGRAV, plane below the decks, preventing the muscle atrophy and bone loss in 0G. Large vessels arrange their decks perpendicular to their thrust axis. The highest decks are at the bow and the lowest at the engines. This allows AGRAV to work with the inertial effects of thrust. Ships that can land arrange their decks laterally, so the crew can move about while the vessel is on the ground. Warships normally turn off their AGRAV systems during combat, reducing the heat generated by systems and increasing combat endurance. To provide a point of reference for navigating in 0G, floors are painted a different color from the walls and ceiling. Very nice. Starships, cruisers. Cruiserweight starships are the standard combat unit encountered away from large naval bases, the poor bloody infantry of most fleets. Nimble scouting frigates have neither the punch nor the stamina to stand up to serious combat, and the mighty dreadnoughts are a strategic resource, carefully hoarded and committed to the most critical battles. Cruisers perform routine independent show the flag patrols in settled systems and lead flotillas of frigates in small engagements, such as pirate suppression campaigns. In major fleet engagements, cruiser squadrons support the dreadnought battle line by screening their flanks against enemies attempting to maneuver for a main gun bow shot from their vulnerable broadsides. Alliance cruisers are named after cities of Earth. Starships, Dreadnought. The Dreadnought is the ultimate arbiter of space warfare. Millions of tons of metal, ceramic, and polymer dedicated to the projection of firepower against an enemy vessel of like ability. No sane commander would face a dreadnought with anything less than another dreadnought. A dreadnought's power lies in the length of its main gun. Dreadnoughts range from 800 meters to 1 kilometer long. That's a big boy. With a main gun of commensurate length. Commensurate? Not sure what that word means. An 800-meter mass accelerator is capable of accelerating one 2-kilogram slug to a velocity of 283 kilometers per second every 2 seconds. Wow. Each slug has a kinetic energy of 38 kilotons of TNT, 3 times the energy released by the fission weapon that destroyed Hiroshima. Wow. That puts it into perspective for us, people living in these times, and that's destruction right there. That is destruction right there. When used to bombard planets, some of this kinetic energy is lost due to atmospheric re-entry friction. As a rule of thumb, each Earth atmosphere of air pressure saps approximately 20% of a projectile's impact energy. The Turian fleet presently has 37 dreadnoughts. The Asari, 21, and the Solarian, 16. Humanity has 6, with an additional hull under construction at Arcturus Station. Alliance battleships are named for mountains of Earth. Everest class, Everest, Fuji, Elbrus. Kilimanjaro class, Kilimanjaro, Taishan, Shasta, Aconcagua, under construction. I'm sorry if I butchered a couple of those. Definitely that last one. Anywho. At least, probably, definitely. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, probably. Freighters are single-pilot combat small craft. They are lightweight enough that they can be economically fitted with powerful element zero cores, making them capable of greater acceleration and sharper maneuvers than starships. Kinetic barrier shields changed starship battles from short, vicious bloodbaths to extended, indecisive slugging matches. Interesting. Only the main gun of a dreadnought could punch a mass accelerator slug through the barriers of an opposing dreadnought. This changed with the development of the fighter-launched mass disruptor torpedo, a short-range weapon that can penetrate kinetic barriers to destroy their projector assemblies. Starship Guardian defenses must be overwhelmed through swarm tactics. Fighter groups can take heavy casualties pressing their torpedo attacks home. Oofle, yeah, makes a lot of sense. Once fighter-launched torpedoes have crippled an enemy's barriers, the mass accelerators on frigates and cruisers can make short work of them. Interceptors are a type of fighter optimized to attack other fighters, with no ability to damage starships. Interceptors are used to screen friendly units from incoming fighter attack. Starships, frigates. Frigates are light escort and scouting vessels. They often have extensive guardian systems to provide anti-fighter screening for capital ships, and carry a squad of marines for security and groundside duty. Unlike larger vessels, frigates are able to land on planets. We are a frigate. The Normandy is a frigate. Very, very cool. We're a pretty state-of-the-art frigate, but a frigate nonetheless. Mother frigger. I was trying to make a joke about frigates and the word frick, but, didn't really work out too great. Oh well. You try. And you'll learn, and you'll live. Okay. Frigate drive systems allow them to achieve high FTL cruise speeds. They also have proportionally larger thrusters and lighter design mass, allowing them to maneuver more handily. In combat, speed and maneuverability make a frigate immune to the long-range fire of larger vessels. In the time it takes... Oh, that's a bit of a typo there. It should say takes, not take. Projectiles to reach them, frigates are no longer where they were predicted to be. In fleet combat, frigates are organized into wolf-pack flotillas of 4 or 6. Wolf-packs speed through enemy formations, hunting enemy vessels whose kinetic barriers have been taken down by freighter-launched disruptor torpedoes. The wolf-packs circle strafes vulnerable targets, using their superior speed and maneuverability to evade return fire. Alliance frigates are named for great battles in human history. Starships, sensors. Oh, hold on, are there... Okay, yeah, apparently there's actually no, There's actually no, name list there. Starships, sensors. Light lag prevents sensing in real time at great distances. A ship firing its thrusters at the Charon relay can be easily detected from Earth, 5.75 light hours, 6 billion kilometers away. But Earth will only see the event 5 hours and 45 minutes after it occurs. Due to the light speed limit, defenders can't see enemies coming until they have already arrived. Oof, that's spoopy. Because there is FTL travel and communications, but no FTL sensors, frigates are crucial for scouting and picket duties. Not sure what picket duties means. Passive sensors are used for long-range detection, while active sensors obtain short-range, high-quality targeting data. Passive sensors include visual, thermographic, and radio detectors that watch and listen for objects in space. A powered ship emits a great deal of energy, the heat of the life support systems, the radiation given off by power plants and electrical equipment, the exhaust of the thrusters. Starships stand out plainly against the near-absolute zero background of space. Passive sensors can be used during FTL travel, but incoming data is significantly distorted by the effects of the mass effect envelope and Doppler shift. Active sensors are radars and high-resolution laser detection and ranging that emit a ping of energy and listen for return signals. LADARs have a narrower field of view than radar, but LADAR resolution allows images of detected objects to be assembled. Active sensors are useless when a ship is moving at FTL speeds. Technology. Last little thing here. I know we read biotic amps and we've read communications. So, communications administration. While comm buoys allow rapid transmission, there is a finite amount of bandwidth available. Given that trillions of people may be trying to pass a message through a given buoy at any one time, access to the network is parceled out on priority tiers. The Citadel Council and the Spectres have absolute priority. If they are using all the bandwidth, everyone else must wait. Individual governments and their military enjoy the next highest tier. During wartime, civilian communication can suffer hours or even days of lag. Intelligence agencies study ping time through various systems to predict military buildups. Interesting. Below the governments and militaries, bandwidth priority is sold to the highest bidder. Now, of course, because corporations, it's kind of like real life, wow. Media conglomerates, particularly headline news networks, purchase higher priority to provide their viewers with timely information. Corporations that require timely information and response capability, for example, financial institutions and investment firms, also invest heavily in priority access. The funds acquired through sales of bandwidth are used to maintain and expand the communications infrastructure. While everyone with a computer has guaranteed free and unlimited access to the galactic extranet, they are last in line for bandwidth and may have to wait for their request to be processed. Bandwidth resale corporations use investment capital to purchase blocks of high-priority access, made available by paid subscription. Creds. The standard credit was established by the Citadel's Unified Banking Act as the currency of interstellar trade. The credit has a managed floating exchange rate, calculated in real time by the central bank to maintain the average value of all participating currencies. Some regional currencies are worth more than a credit, and some less. Hard currency can be stolen or counterfeited, so electronic fund transfers are the norm. More importantly, the physical transactions cannot be easily tracked, making them ideal for tax evasion or the purchase of illegal goods. When the Alliance joined the Citadel, its various national treasuries were linked into the credit network. A human with a bank account of Mexican pesos, Japanese yen, or Indian rupees can purchase any item priced in credits at fair market value. All economies that participate in the credit network are required to price items in both local currency and credits. This kind of also lets you know what world powers it really ended up getting up there, which is interesting how Mexican pesos are included in there, but Japanese yen and Indian rupees make a lot of sense. They're already very, very, very globally influential countries. Anywho, we are done here, and for now, and join me next time where I read more Codex-y things on here, and join me in the Let's Play where we continue Ada Shepard's adventures. Like, comment, subscribe if you'd like to, friendos, and I hope I see y'all another time.